Welcome to Code Legends. If you're enjoying the content, please support the channel by subscribing and liking the video. Now, let's get started. We're actually going to get started with TypeScript, and I'm super excited, and I hope you are too. Before we get started, let me go into the prerequisites. I'm assuming that you already have an editor, as you should already be familiar with JavaScript to continue with this course. Other than that, you should make sure that you have Node.js and npm commands available in your terminal. I think if you have JavaScript experience, this is something you're already going to have, but just in case, I am briefly going to show you how to check that. So go to your terminal and just type in node-v and click on enter. If you see the version here, you're going to have Node available. And if you have Node available, you would have npm command available as well. You can check it like this. This is the version that I have installed. So if you have this available, you are all set. And we can start by creating a new folder wherever you'd like. I have placed mine on desktop, as you see, and I've named it TypeScript course. There's a README file here generated by GitHub because this is a repository that I'm going to upload for your convenience on GitHub, just in case you want to view the code that we're going to be writing. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is try to install TypeScript globally. Just for extra information here, you can install TypeScript locally for specific projects. However, I prefer the TypeScript command to be available globally in any directory anytime I need it without repeating the installation each time for every project, because I know I'm going to be using this a lot and I really hope that you are too. To do that, we're just going to type npm and then install. We're going to give it the global flag like this and then TypeScript and just click on enter. And it added one package for us. If you want to check whether the TypeScript is available in your command line, you can type tsc and then -v, and this should output the current version for you. Now let's talk a little bit about tsc command. It represents TypeScript command line utility, and its primary function is to type check and then convert our TypeScript code into JavaScript. And you might ask, how are we going to do that? And to explore this, let's first start by initializing TypeScript project. Now, inside this folder, I want to do that, so we can just do change directory with the cd command and then go to desktop, and then I'm going to go to my folder, which is TypeScript course. Click on enter, and now I'm inside that directory. And all we need to do for this is type tsc and then 2 dashes and then init. And this stands for initialize. Let's click on enter, and we're going to see that there is a new tsconfig JSON file created with these attributes. So we're going to jump into that now. I'm going to open this file. And once you see this, you might be wondering, what the heck is this? We should talk about this for a little while now so that you understand the very basics of what tsconfig JSON file takes care of. This file guides TypeScript on how to apply its type checker and compiler settings. If there's a tsconfig JSON file in the project directory, TypeScript will automatically apply the configurations here to our project. So throughout this tutorial, I will assume that each TypeScript code that you're going to write is paired with tsconfig.json file. At first glance, of course, this is very overwhelming, but there's no rush here, so please don't get scared. We're not going to talk about all of the configuration options right now and tackle everything in one go, but we are going to discuss the default active settings TypeScript provides in this file and just some important ones. The commented out sections will be covered later, and you can dive deep if you're interested. Our first point of discussion is going to be the target setting that we see here. It is currently set to ES 2016, and this option determines the JavaScript version that TypeScript will compile our code to. While ES 2016 introduces newer features and improvements, it is not ideal for other browsers like Internet Explorer. So if compatibility with browsers like Internet Explorer is a priority for you, setting this target to ES5 might be recommended for you. This would just ensure broader support and avoid potential incompatibilities. Targeting older browsers often means adding more code to the JavaScript files that are going to be outputted with the polyfills and workarounds. However, for this tutorial, we're just going to use the default, which is ES 2016, as it was initialized before. Next, let's go to another important setting, which is the module setting that we see right here. This informs TypeScript about the module system the output of our bundle will use. This particularly affects how our import and export statements are transformed in the final JavaScript output. So if you were making Node.js app or using a bundler like Webpack, I would suggest you use the default common.js value. There are other values available as well, but for the most part, unless you have some specific requirements, I suggest you leave this as is. There's one setting that is actually commented out, but I think is important to be discussed. So let me quickly go to that. It's called isolated modules. If this setting is enabled, each file will be transpiled as a separate module, which means that TypeScript expects every file to have either an import statement or an export statement. If you do not have anything to import or export for some specific reason, you can just create an export of a default empty object. Another important setting that I want to discuss is this strict right here. The flexibility of the tsconfig JSON file also lets us choose how strict our type checking will be. And here are some benefits you'll get from using the strict flag. In TypeScript, any is a type which turns off the type checker for the variable which is assigned that type. It makes it act like regular JavaScript, and if we want a variable to do that, we should be explicit about it, so we don't accidentally create type errors for ourselves. We'll learn more about this anytype later in the course when we're going to discuss special TypeScript types. But for now, we'll make sure anytime we're using the anytype, it's because we explicitly want to, and this flag is going to help us do that. Now, let's go to another important setting, which is the ES module interlop right here. And this simplifies importing common.js modules into TypeScript projects that use ES module syntax. Basically, this is going to be crucial when we're working with npm packages, so let's make sure that this flag is on. It does add a small bit of code to our JavaScript output, but it saves a lot more headaches, and I definitely recommend you turn it on. Now, let's talk about this setting, which is force consistent casing in file names. This setting is a safeguard against file name case discrepancies. Certain systems are not case sensitive and might allow you to import files even if the imported file name does not exactly match the casing used on the original file. However, if you're dealing with the case-sensitive systems and happen to deploy your code there, it can be problematic to discover later that you have some code that is accidentally importing files with the wrong casing. Therefore, turn this setting on because you are now going to have a preventative measure against unforeseen deployment hitches, as you would be notified by TypeScript if your file names do not match the case exactly. I've ran into these issues before where my app works perfectly on my non-case sensitive local development system, but when I deployed to case sensitive environment, I discovered I accidentally tried to import a file using the wrong casing. So this will help in that. Now let's go to the next important setting, which is the strict null checks here. This is gonna alert you when a variable might be null or undefined, and it is just help against the very famous cannot read property of undefined errors that we discussed before, and we'll cover more about this later when we're going to go over narrowing the types. Now let's also talk about the strict property initialization setting, which alerts when class properties are not initialized during construction. This would mean the properties of the class are undefined, which could lead to unexpected bugs. We're going to look into this later during the course as well, so just keep this in mind. Let's also go over no implicit this setting. When this setting is active, it basically nudges us to annotate this keyword, clarifying its properties. We're also going to learn more about this when we're going to go over classes in details. And now let's go to our final one, which is skip lib check setting. It's right here. And this instructs TypeScript to skip checks on files imported from the node modules. It assumes that the imported package type definitions are accurate. That's all for today's lesson. I hope that you enjoyed it and understood some of the properties in the settings. If not, that's okay, because we're still going to go over them whenever we do need them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.